Admiral Vortash stood on the bridge of the Star's Dominion, the pride of the Zephyrian fleet, and watched the blue marble of Earth grow larger on the main display. Behind his massive dreadnought, 29 other Council warships maintained perfect formation as they approached the human home system. The fleet represented enough firepower to reduce a planet to ash, though Vortash hoped such extreme measures would not be necessary. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting 28 human vessels moving to intercept. They appear to be maintaining a defensive perimeter around their moon." Vortash studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans were doing exactly what Council battle doctrine predicted they would do: form a defensive line, wait for the enemy to approach, then engage in traditional ship-to-ship combat. It was textbook strategy for an inferior force hoping to maximize their defensive advantages. "Signal the human fleet," Vortash commanded. "Inform them that the Galactic Council demands their immediate surrender. If they comply, we will accept their submission with honor and integrate them into Council space under appropriate supervision." The communications officer, a young Kreetak whose mandibles clicked nervously, transmitted the message across all human frequencies. The response came back within minutes, transmitted in clear text so there could be no misunderstanding. "Come and take it." Vortash felt his scales shift color in surprise. The message was only 4 words, but something about the tone conveyed a level of defiance that seemed almost insulting. Did these primitives truly believe they could resist the might of the Council fleet? "Very well," he said aloud. "All ships, advance in battle formation. Prepare to demonstrate the consequences of refusing Council authority." On the bridge of the UES Constitution, Admiral Ryan Brooks watched the Council fleet approach with grim satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as human military planners had hoped. The aliens were advancing in perfect formation, their ships maintaining regulation distances and following established tactical protocols that had been developed over centuries of fighting similar opponents. "Commander Sullivan," Brooks said to his tactical officer, "initiate Protocol 7. Signal all ships to execute scatter pattern Delta." Kate Sullivan's fingers danced across her control console, sending encrypted quantum bursts to every ship in the human fleet. On her screens, she watched as the neat defensive formation around Earth's moon suddenly exploded into chaos. Human ships scattered in all directions, some diving toward the inner planets, others racing outward toward the asteroid belt, and a few appearing to retreat toward the outer system entirely. "Sir," Sullivan reported, "all ships have acknowledged. Scatter orders. Phase 1 is complete." Brooks nodded, then activated the ship's communication system. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Brooks. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. Make them remember this day." Admiral Vortash watched the human formation dissolve with growing confusion. Scattering was not an unknown tactic, but the way the humans were doing it made no tactical sense. They were abandoning defensive positions, splitting their already inferior numbers, and moving in directions that seemed random rather than strategic. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessels are not following standard engagement protocols. Some are moving toward the asteroid belt, others are using planetary gravity to accelerate beyond normal parameters." "Pursue them," Vortash ordered. "Split our forces to match their movements. We cannot allow them to escape and regroup elsewhere." It was exactly the wrong decision, though Vortash would not realize it until much later. Council Tactical Doctrine emphasized maintaining formation integrity and using superior firepower to overwhelm enemy positions. Splitting forces was only done when facing multiple separate threats, not when chasing a single retreating enemy. Captain Danny Foster guided his converted mining ship, the New Haven, through the asteroid belt with the casual expertise of someone who had spent 20 years extracting rare metals from space rocks. Behind him, 3 council cruisers pursued at what they probably considered a safe distance, their sensors tracking his ship through the maze of tumbling stone and ice. "Captain," his weapons officer called out, "the drilling laser is fully charged and ready for industrial operations." Foster smiled grimly. The New Haven still looked like a mining vessel because it was a mining vessel. The Council intelligence reports had correctly identified it as a civilian craft converted for military use. What they had failed to understand was that mining equipment could be far more dangerous than traditional weapons when used creatively. "Target asteroid designation 77 Alpha, Foster commanded. "Full power bore, 30-second duration." The industrial drilling laser, designed to cut through solid rock like a knife through paper, lanced out toward a house-sized asteroid floating directly in the path of the pursuing council ships. For 30 seconds, the beam carved completely through the massive rock, superheating stone, and ice until the asteroid's internal structure became fatally unstable. Foster checked his chronometer and smiled. "All hands, brace for impact. Time to show these aliens how humans mine asteroids." The explosion, when it came, was spectacular. The asteroid did not simply break apart. It detonated like a massive bomb, sending fragments in all directions with devastating force. The lead council cruiser, caught completely off guard by the unconventional attack, took dozens of high-velocity impacts that overwhelmed its shields and tore through its hull like projectiles through tissue paper. "Direct hit, Foster's weapons," officer reported with satisfaction. "Council cruiser is venting atmosphere and appears to be losing power." "Target of opportunity," Foster replied. "Bring us around for another pass." Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out as human ships used tactics that no council computer had been programmed to expect. Commander Elena Rodriguez led a squadron of converted cargo haulers in a gravity-assisted attack on a council battleship, using Earth's moon as a slingshot to achieve velocities that should have been impossible for such massive vessels. The council ship's captain watched in disbelief as the human vessels approached at speeds that violated every known principle of safe spaceflight. Their acceleration was so extreme that any civilized crew would have been killed by the gravitational forces involved. "Evasive maneuvers," the captain ordered. But it was too late. The human ships had used their impossible velocity to close distance, faster than his weapons could track, and suddenly his battleship was under attack from 6 different angles simultaneously. The human weapons were primitive compared to council plasma cannons, but at close range and high velocity, even primitive. Weapons could be devastating. Kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed punched through the battleship's shields like they were not even there, while modified mining charges detonated against the hull with enough force to crack the ship's superstructure. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, the tactical officer reported in panic. "We're losing life support in the forward sections." Back on the star's dominion, Admiral Vortash received damage reports from across his fleet with growing alarm. In less than an hour of combat, the humans had managed to destroy 4 council ships and severely damage 6 others. Meanwhile, human losses appeared to be minimal, with only 2 vessels reported as destroyed and 3 damaged. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his staff. "Our ships are superior in every measurable category." His intelligence officer, A. Valderan, whose crystal structure was flickering with stress patterns, provided what analysis he could. "Admiral, the humans are not fighting according to established tactical doctrine. They are using unconventional weapons, impossible maneuvers, and coordinating their attacks through methods we cannot predict or counter." "They are fighting like barbarians," Vortash snarled. "Yes, sir. And it appears to be extremely effective against our civilized battle tactics." On the Constitution's bridge, Admiral Brooks watched the tactical display with quiet satisfaction. The scatter pattern had worked perfectly, forcing the Council fleet to split their forces and engage human ships in small groups rather than using their numerical superiority effectively. Human captains, freed from the constraints of traditional formation fighting, were using every dirty trick their species had learned during centuries of warfare on Earth. "Sir," Commander Sullivan reported. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Captain Martinez's squadron. They're requesting permission to implement the Trojan Horse Protocol." Brooks considered for a moment. The Trojan Horse was one of humanity's most desperate tactics, and using it would confirm to the Council that humans were willing to break every rule of civilized warfare to achieve victory. "Granted," he said finally. "Signal Captain Martinez that he is authorized for unrestricted engagement." Captain Rick Martinez received the authorization with grim pleasure. His squadron of modified freighters had been hanging back from the main battle, appearing to retreat toward the outer system. The Council ships had dismissed them as non-combatants fleeing the battle zone. They were about to discover their mistake. "All ships," Martinez broadcast on the tactical frequency, "implement." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Denver, watching the stars through the main viewport. His hands gripped the metal railing as he waited for the final message from Earth Command. Around him, his crew worked quietly, at their stations. The ship hummed with the steady sound of engines preparing for the longest journey humanity had ever attempted. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command," said Lieutenant Amy Rogers from the communications station. Her voice carried the weight of what everyone on the bridge already knew was coming. "Put it through," Morrison replied. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Robert Hayes, the weathered face of Earth's military commander. The man looked tired, older than his 60 years. Behind him, Morrison could see the familiar blue and green of Earth through the command. "Center windows. All colony ships. This is Admiral Hayes with Operation Exodus final authorization. You are cleared to depart Council space immediately. Navigation routes have been uploaded to your systems. Maintain communication silence until you reach designated. Coordinates in Sector 7 Alpha. Good luck to all of you." The transmission ended. Morrison felt the silence that followed like a physical weight. After 200 years of trying to earn their place among the galactic community, humanity was walking away. No grand speeches, no angry declarations. They were simply leaving. Dr. Lisa Coleman entered the bridge carrying a datapad filled with classified files. She had spent the last 3 years documenting every slight, every dismissal, every time. Human contributions had been ignored or belittled by the Council species. Her research had helped convince Earth's leaders that this departure was necessary. "Captain, the other ships are reporting ready status," she said, handing him the pad. "The Montana has finished loading the last refugee families from the Kepler colonies. The Nebraska is standing by with the industrial equipment from New Shanghai. The Arizona reports all agricultural specialists are aboard." Morrison scrolled through the data, seeing names of ships carrying millions of humans toward an uncertain future. Each vessel represented years of careful planning, secret preparations made while maintaining the appearance of normal Council membership. "What about the diplomatic stations?" Morrison asked. "Ambassador Karen White transmitted our formal withdrawal notice to the Council this morning. By the time they read it, we'll be long gone. She's aboard the passenger liner Chicago with the rest of the diplomatic corps." Morrison nodded. The plan had been simple in concept, but massive in execution. Every human colony, research station, trade outpost, and military base would evacuate simultaneously. The Council would wake up to find humanity gone from 47 different star systems. Commander Alex Harper approached from the tactical station. He had spent months coordinating the logistics of moving 12 million humans across 17 sectors without alerting Council monitoring systems. His planning had made the impossible evacuation feasible. "Sir, we have confirmation from all convoy leaders. The northern route ships led by the Montana are ready. The central convoy behind the Nebraska is prepared. Our southern route vessels, following the Arizona, have reported in. We're looking at a clean departure across the board." "Any Council interference?" Morrison asked. "None. Their patrol schedules haven't changed. Most Council species are focused on their own territories. They haven't noticed our increased cargo movement or the unusual shipping patterns." Dr. Coleman opened her datapad to a file marked with highest security clearance. "Captain, before, We leave. You should know what we discovered in our final intelligence gathering. The Zephyrians have been deliberately blocking our medical research from reaching Council health databases. Dr. Nina Scott's cancer treatments could have saved thousands of lives on the outer colonies, but the Zephyrian Medical Authority classified them as unproven human experimentation. Morrison's jaw tightened. Dr. Scott's work had eliminated 3 different forms of cancer that plagued multiple species. But because she was human, her breakthrough research had been buried in bureaucratic reviews that never ended. What else? He asked. The Corthan Empire has been sabotaging human trade applications for 15 years. Every time human merchants applied for expanded shipping rights, Corthan officials would find technical violations in the paperwork. Meanwhile, they approved identical applications from Zephyrian and Andromedas companies within days. Commander Harper pulled up a tactical display showing human patrol routes throughout Council space. Red markers indicated locations where human peacekeeping forces had prevented conflicts through careful diplomacy and measured force. The Council's Security Board never officially recognized our contributions to border stability, Harper said. Captain Tony Garcia's squadron stopped a Vraxth invasion fleet at the Proxima Gateway, but the official reports credited joint Council forces without mentioning that Garcia's ships did all the fighting while Council reinforcements were still 3 days away. Dr. Coleman continued reading from her files. Our engineers have been maintaining quantum fusion reactors on 17 different worlds. The alien technical staff can operate the systems, but they don't understand how to repair them when components from different species' technology don't work together. Engineer Steve Watson spent 5 years developing integration protocols that keep those reactors running safely. The Council Engineering Guilds dismissed his methods as chaotic human improvisation. Morrison walked to the communications station. Amy, patch me through to all ships in the convoy. All vessels are receiving, sir. This is Captain Morrison aboard the New Denver. In 10 minutes, we begin humanity's journey to the Galactic Rim. We're not leaving because we're angry, though we have reasons to be. We're not leaving to punish the Council, though they deserve it. We're leaving because we've realized something important. He paused, looking out at the stars that had called to humanity since they first developed spaceflight. We spent 2 centuries trying to prove we belonged among the galactic community. We changed our methods to match their preferences. We accepted smaller territories and limited roles. We swallowed our pride when they treated us like children who needed guidance. But we never needed their approval. We just thought we did. Dr. Coleman watched as the convoy ships aligned into formation. Hundreds of vessels carrying humanity's entire galactic population prepared to jump to hyperspace simultaneously. The Ray species out there in the Rim territories have never heard of the Galactic Council, Morrison continued over the comm system. They don't know that humans are supposed to be the young, inexperienced race that needs supervision. They'll judge us by our actions, not our species' age or the Council's opinions about our worthiness. Lieutenant Rogers began the final countdown sequence. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Navigation computers synchronized. Jump in 60 seconds. Commander Harper monitored the tactical displays showing empty Council patrol routes around their position. Still no response from Council forces, sir. They have no idea what's happening. Morrison took one last look at the star charts showing Council space. Earth was a tiny blue dot on the display, lost among thousands of systems controlled by species that had never given humanity a fair chance. Amy, are we recording this for the historical archives? Yes, sir. Full documentation is active. Then, let the record show that on this date, humanity chose dignity over acceptance. We chose to find our own path rather than beg for a place at someone else's table. The Council will realize what they've lost, but only after we've proven we never needed them in the first place. The countdown reached 0. Space around the convoy fractured into brilliant light as hundreds of human ships entered hyperspace, simultaneously. In seconds, the largest migration in human history disappeared from Council space. Behind them, Automated monitoring stations recorded the jump signatures, but classified them as routine cargo movements. It would be hours before anyone realized that humanity had vanished completely from galactic civilization. The Council's regret would begin soon enough. Trade Administrator Velmos stared at the cargo manifest on his screen for the third time, his 6 eyes blinking in confusion. The shipping numbers made no sense. Deliveries that should have taken 4 days were now taking 6 or 7. Supply. Runs that used to arrive on schedule were showing up late with damaged goods and incomplete orders. His assistant, a young Zephyrian named Kolran, hovered nervously beside his desk. "Sir, the quarterly trade reports show a 23% decrease in shipping efficiency across all major routes. The Council Commerce Board is demanding answers." Velmos pulled up a star map showing the main trade corridors that connected 40 different systems. Red markers indicated delayed shipments, yellow showed damaged cargo, and blue marked completely failed deliveries. The pattern looked like a disease spreading through the galactic economy. "What changed 6 months ago?" Velmos asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The humans left, sir. All of them." Velmos had barely noticed when the human representatives stopped attending trade meetings. Ambassador Karen White had submitted some formal paperwork about withdrawal from council activities, but no one had bothered reading it carefully. Humans were always filing complaints and requests that the council ignored anyway. "Surely other species can handle simple cargo runs," Velmos said. Kolran pulled up shipping records from before the human departure. "Sir, humans were running connecting routes between major systems. The Andromedas Corporation ships could handle the big deliveries between homeworlds, but humans managed all the smaller runs that linked remote colonies to the main trade network. Without those connections, the entire system is failing." On the industrial world of Kepler-7, factory supervisor Gul'dan crawled through the maintenance tunnels beneath the quantum fusion reactor complex. Warning lights flashed red throughout. The facility, as the 3rd reactor in 2 weeks, showed signs of critical malfunction. His engineering team followed behind him, carrying diagnostic equipment that seemed useless against problems they couldn't understand. "The fusion containment field is destabilizing again," reported Chief Engineer Mortek. "The Zephyrian field generators are incompatible with the Corthan power regulators, just like the last time." Gul'dan emerged from the tunnel covered in coolant, fluid, and metal shavings. 6 months ago, human technician Pete Johnson would have fixed this problem in 20 minutes. Johnson had an uncanny ability to make different species technology work together using methods that seemed random but always produced results. "What did the human do differently?" Gul'dan asked. Mortek consulted his notes from Johnson's last repair job. He bypassed the primary coupling system and ran power through the secondary relays. But he modified the frequency output using a Corthan harmonic amplifier connected to a Zephyrian stabilization matrix. "None of our engineers understand why that combination works. Can we replicate his methods?" "We tried, sir. The reactor overloaded and nearly destroyed the entire facility." Johnson somehow knew exactly which settings to use, but he never documented his procedures in our standard technical formats. Gul'dan looked at the massive industrial complex that employed 50,000 workers across 12 different species. Without the quantum fusion reactors, the factories would shut down within days. The refined metals and manufactured goods produced here supplied entire sectors of council space. "How many other facilities are experiencing similar problems?" he asked. "Reports are coming in from 37 industrial worlds, sir. They all depended on human technicians to maintain the integration systems between different technologies." Dr. Zara Veltan stood in her laboratory on the medical research station orbiting Andromedas Prime, staring at tissue samples that represented her complete failure. The plague spreading through the outer colonies had killed over 2 million beings in the past month, and her team couldn't develop an effective treatment. Her research assistant, Dr. Kavran, approached with another batch of failed test results. "The synthetic antibodies aren't working, Dr. Veltan. The plague adapts to every treatment we develop within days." Dr. Veltan remembered dismissing human medical research as primitive and unreliable. Dr. Nina Scott had presented her breakthrough antibiotic synthesis methods to the Galactic Medical Consortium 3 years ago, but the Zephyrian Medical Authority had classified her work as unproven experimentation. Locate Dr. Scott's research files, Dr. Veltan ordered. They're not in our databases, sir. Dr. Scott took all her research when the humans departed. The files we have are just the preliminary reports she submitted for peer review. Dr. Veltan pulled up those preliminary reports, reading them with new understanding. Dr. Scott's synthetic antibodies weren't designed to kill diseases directly. Instead, they enhanced the immune systems of multiple species simultaneously, allowing natural defenses to adapt faster than the diseases could evolve. This is brilliant work, Dr. Veltan admitted. Why did we reject it? Dr. Cavron checked the review committee records. The evaluation board said her methods were too simplistic for serious medical research. They claimed that effective treatments required more sophisticated approaches using advanced Zephyrian biotechnology. And now, millions are dying because we were too proud to learn from human simplicity. Council Security Chief Craven studied the tactical display showing pirate attacks throughout the border regions. Red alerts flashed across 17 different systems, where merchant vessels had been attacked, cargo stolen, and crews killed or captured. The attacks were increasing every week. Captain Dulmar of the Council Border Patrol entered Craven's office, carrying reports of the latest incidents. Sir, we've lost 12 more cargo ships in the frontier zone. The pirates are using hit-and-run tactics against our patrol routes. Craven had commanded Council security forces for 15 years, but the current situation made no strategic sense. These same trade routes were completely secure just 6 months ago. What changed? The human peacekeeping missions ended when they departed, sir. Captain Tony Garcia's squadron used to patrol the frontier regions using small, fast ships that could respond quickly to threats. Craven pulled up the old patrol schedules. Human ships had covered twice as much territory as current Council patrols using half as many vessels. Their tactics focused on preventing conflicts through rapid response and precise force rather than the overwhelming firepower preferred by Council military doctrine. Why didn't we maintain their patrol patterns? Craven asked. Captain Dulmar hesitated before answering. The Council Military Board classified human peacekeeping methods as inefficient, sir. They said that proper security required large battle groups and defensive formations, not the small patrol squadrons humans preferred. And the result? Pirates now operate freely in regions where human patrols prevented them from establishing bases. Our big battle groups are too slow to catch raiders, and too expensive to deploy in sufficient numbers. Craven watched the tactical display as another merchant vessel transmitted a distress signal before going silent. How many attacks this week? 43 confirmed, sir. Probably twice that number in unreported incidents. Ambassador Zeltar sat in the council chamber listening to reports of system failures throughout galactic civilization. Trade disruptions, industrial breakdowns, medical crises, and security problems were affecting every major population center. The situation is clearly temporary, announced Chancellor Voxhigh from the speaking platform. Minor adjustments to our logistics and personnel assignments will resolve these issues quickly. But Zeltar had been reading the detailed reports that other council members ignored. The problems weren't random mechanical failures or temporary personnel shortages. They were the result of losing an entire species that had quietly become essential to galactic civilization. Humans had filled the gaps between different species' capabilities. While each council race excelled in specific areas, humans had the flexibility to work with everyone. They translated not just languages, but approaches to problem solving. They found ways to make incompatible technologies work together. They handled the small, unglamorous tasks that kept complex systems running smoothly. Perhaps we should consider inviting the humans to return, Zeltar suggested. The chamber fell silent. Chancellor Vox High's expression showed the contempt that most council members felt toward the suggestion. The humans left because they couldn't handle the responsibilities of galactic citizenship, Vox High declared. We cannot appear weak by begging them to return. Besides, they were never essential to our civilization. We simply need time to adjust our procedures. Zeltar said nothing more, but privately he wondered if they had made the greatest mistake. In council history, the humans hadn't demanded respect or recognition when they left. They had simply disappeared, taking with them capabilities that the council was only now beginning to understand. Outside the council chamber, maintenance workers struggled to repair the environmental systems that had been maintained by human technicians for decades. The irony wasn't lost on Zeltar that even the building where they dismissed human contributions was failing without human expertise. 2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Trade Commission headquarters on Zephyrian Prime resembled a war room more than a commercial center. Director Halos stood before a massive holographic display showing trade route failures across 17 major shipping corridors. Red lines marked routes that had become unprofitable, yellow indicated severely delayed shipments, and blue showed complete system breakdowns. "The numbers are worse than our worst projections," announced trade analyst Morgan, her voice barely steady. 17 primary shipping routes have recorded losses exceeding 40%. The Outer Rim colonies are reporting food shortages, and industrial worlds can't get raw materials delivered on schedule. Director Halos studied the data with growing alarm. The humans had operated what seemed like small, insignificant cargo runs between major systems. But those connections had been the nervous system of galactic commerce, linking remote colonies to main trade networks and ensuring that goods flowed efficiently between different species' territories. "What about the alternative shipping companies?" Halos asked. "The Andromedus Corporation can handle large cargo shipments between homeworlds, but they refuse to service colonies with fewer than 10 million inhabitants. They say the runs aren't profitable enough. The Corthan Imperial Fleet will transport military supplies but won't carry civilian goods. The Zephyrian Commercial Guild only operates within our own territorial space." Halos realized the terrible truth. Humans had been the only species willing to take on the small, difficult, low-profit shipping runs that kept remote colonies connected to galactic civilization. Without those connections, entire systems were becoming isolated. How many colonies are affected? 137 worlds are experiencing severe supply shortages, sir. 43 have declared states of emergency. On the research, Station Infinity 9, Chief Researcher Morgak stood in the ruins of what had been the most advanced fusion laboratory in Council space. Twisted metal and melted equipment filled the chamber where his team had attempted to replicate the fusion breakthrough developed by human engineer Steve Watson 3 years earlier. Dr. Colvin approached carrying a medical scanner and wearing protective gear against the radiation still leaking from the failed experiment. "Sir, the containment failure was complete. We're looking at 6 months of decontamination before anyone can enter this section again." Morgak had spent his entire career studying fusion technology from 12 different species. He understood the theoretical principles better than most beings in the galaxy. But Steve Watson had possessed something that couldn't be learned from textbooks or technical manuals. Watson could make incompatible technologies work together through intuitive understanding that seemed like magic. "Show me Watson's original design specifications again," Morgak requested. Dr. Colvin projected the human's technical drawings onto a portable display. The fusion reactor design looked chaotic compared to standard council engineering practices. Watson had combined Zephyrian field generators with Corthan power regulators and Andromedus control systems, connecting them through a web of modifications that violated every principle of proper engineering. "His design shouldn't work," Morgak said. "The harmonic frequencies are incompatible. The power output ratios don't match. The safety protocols conflict with each other." "But it did work, sir. For 3 years, Watson's reactor produced twice the energy output of our best designs while using half the fuel. The system never experienced a single malfunction until we tried to modify it. Morgak looked at the damage his team had caused, trying to improve on Watson's work. They had attempted to replace the humans' chaotic modifications with proper engineering solutions. The result had been catastrophic failure that destroyed months of research and nearly killed everyone in the laboratory. Contact the other research stations. I want to know if anyone else has successfully replicated human fusion technology. Dr. Colvin checked his communication logs. Sir, 17 research facilities have attempted similar projects. 14 have experienced containment failures. 2 have shut down their programs after multiple accidents. One facility on Corthan Prime suffered a reactor breach that killed 37 researchers. The Council faced its first serious military crisis, when long-range sensors detected a massive Vract Empire fleet approaching the border systems. The hostile Vract had been quiet for decades, but intelligence reports suggested they were testing Council defenses to identify weaknesses. Admiral Thulgor commanded the Council defense fleet from his flagship, the massive battlecruiser Dominion. His fleet included over 200 vessels representing the military might of 6 different species. By any measure of conventional power, the Council forces should have easily defeated the smaller Vract attack fleet. Enemy fleet composition? Admiral Thulgor asked his tactical officer. 60 vessels, sir. Mix of fast attack ships and medium cruisers. No heavy battleships. Standard Vract rating formation. Admiral Thulgor deployed his forces according to Council military doctrine. Heavy battleships formed the center line, with cruisers providing support and fighters screening the flanks. The formation looked impressive and should have overwhelmed any conventional attack. The battle began at long range, with both fleets exchanging missile volleys. The Council ships absorbed the Vract attacks with minimal damage, their heavy armor and shields proving effective against conventional weapons. Admiral Thulgor prepared to close range and finish the enemy with superior firepower. But the Vract fleet suddenly dispersed into small groups that attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Instead of engaging the Council battle line, directly they targeted supply ships, communication relays, and command vessels. The Council formation, designed for conventional fleet battles, couldn't respond effectively to the chaotic assault. They're using human tactics, realized Commander Velkon from the tactical station. General Katie Lewis developed these asymmetric warfare strategies for fighting larger, more powerful fleets. Admiral Thulgor watched helplessly as Vract raiders destroyed his supply convoy and damaged 2 command ships before his heavy battleships could even target them. The enemy fleet disappeared into hyperspace before the Council forces could mount an effective counterattack. Damage report, Admiral Thulgor ordered. 17 ships destroyed, 34 damaged. Enemy losses appear minimal, sir. Admiral, Thulgor realized that the Vract had learned from studying human military tactics during the years when General Lewis had served as a tactical advisor to Council forces. The humans had developed strategies for defeating larger, more powerful enemies through speed, coordination, and unconventional attacks. Now those same tactics were being used against the Council. The environmental crisis on Green Haven reached catastrophic levels as the planet's carefully maintained ecosystem collapsed without human oversight. Dr. Paxton, the Zephyrian ecologist, now responsible for the terraforming project, stood on a cliff overlooking what had once been the most productive agricultural region in Council space. The green fields had turned brown and barren. Rivers that had flowed clear for decades now ran muddy and polluted. The carefully balanced ecosystem that human terraforming teams had maintained for 20 years was reverting to the desert wasteland that existed before colonization began. The soil chemistry is completely wrong, reported agricultural specialist Cordan. The bacteria cultures that maintain soil fertility have died off. The irrigation systems are failing because the water filtration plants can't handle the mineral content changes. Dr. Paxton had dismissed human terraforming methods as unscientific guesswork. The humans seemed to ignore proper procedures, making Constant small adjustments based on intuition rather than careful scientific analysis. But their methods had worked, creating stable ecosystems that supported millions of inhabitants. What did the human teams do differently? Cordan consulted the incomplete records left behind by the terraforming crews. They monitored thousands of variables that our computers classified as insignificant. Soil moisture levels in remote areas, bacterial populations in specific river sections, breeding patterns of native insects, growth rates of individual plant species. They made adjustments based on patterns our analysis systems couldn't detect. Can we replicate their monitoring systems? The human teams used portable equipment and direct observation rather than automated sensors. They spent weeks in the field studying individual ecosystem components. Our monitoring systems are designed for large-scale data collection, not the detailed micromanagement the humans practiced. Dr. Paxton realized that human terraforming success had depended on thousands of small, intuitive adjustments that prevented minor problems from becoming major disasters. Without that constant attention to detail, the entire planetary ecosystem was collapsing. How long before the colony becomes uninhabitable? At current degradation rates, perhaps 6 months, sir. Chancellor Voxhigh stood before the Council Assembly as representatives from 47 species demanded answers for the cascading failures throughout their civilization. Trade routes had collapsed, industrial production had fallen by 30%, research projects were failing, military defenses were proving inadequate, and entire worlds were becoming uninhabitable. The situation is clearly the result of temporary adjustment. 5 years after humanity's departure, Supreme Chancellor Voxhigh stood before the emergency session of the Council Assembly. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the devastating statistics that could no longer be ignored. Trade had dropped 40%. Industrial production was down 50%. 23 colonies had been abandoned due to system failures. The Council's authority was crumbling as member species blamed each other for the crisis. The Council hereby authorizes Operation Reconciliation, Chancellor Voxhigh announced, his voice carrying none of its former confidence. All available resources will be directed toward locating human settlements and negotiating their return to Council space. Ambassador Zeltar felt no satisfaction at being proven correct. The decision had come too late to prevent massive suffering throughout the galaxy. But perhaps it wasn't too late to save what remained of galactic civilization. The search fleet that departed Council space 3 weeks later was the largest exploration mission in galactic history. Over 100 ships spread across multiple routes toward the rim territories where long-range sensors had detected possible human activity. The mission carried diplomats, trade negotiators, and enough supplies to support extended operations in unexplored space. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Mexico, watching the sensor readings as Council ships entered the outer boundary of human territory. His crew had been monitoring Council communications for months, tracking the growing desperation that had finally driven their former neighbors to seek them out. Council fleet detected at the edge of our patrol zone, reported Lieutenant Dan Parker from the sensor station. 47 vessels in diplomatic formation. They're broadcasting standard first contact protocols. Brooks smiled at the irony. The Council was using first contact procedures to approach the same humans they had dismissed as unworthy of equal treatment just 5 years earlier. Open a channel, Brooks ordered. The main screen displayed the image of Zephyrian diplomat Relman, whose expression showed the strain of 5 years watching galactic civilization collapse. Behind him, Brooks could see other Council representatives from multiple species, all looking far less arrogant than he remembered. Captain Brooks, I am Ambassador Relman representing the Galactic Council. We come seeking dialogue with human leadership regarding mutual cooperation and renewed partnership. Ambassador, you're welcome to dock with our station for discussions. However, I should inform you that humanity no longer recognizes Council authority over our territories or our decisions. Relman's diplomatic training kept his expression neutral. but Brooks could see the shock in the alien's eyes. The Council had never encountered a species that had voluntarily left their authority and then refused to acknowledge their legitimacy. The negotiations took place aboard the human space station Liberty, orbiting the planet New Montana. Ambassador Relman and his delegation found themselves in a conference room that looked remarkably similar to Council facilities, but felt completely different. The humans were polite, professional, and utterly unmoved by Council offers. The Council is prepared to offer humanity full voting membership with expanded territorial rights, Relman began. Your species would have equal representation in all major decisions affecting galactic policy. President Carol Martinez, who had been elected to lead the human settlements 3 years earlier, listened patiently before responding. Ambassador, we appreciate the offer, but humanity has no interest in rejoining the Council under any terms. Perhaps we should discuss specific concerns. The Council recognizes that certain policies may have seemed unfavorable to human interests. We're prepared to address those issues through comprehensive reforms. Dr. Amanda Foster, who served as humanity's chief scientist, spoke up from across the table. Ambassador, the issue wasn't unfavorable policies. The issue was that the Council never accepted humans as equals. You tolerated our presence while dismissing our contributions. When we offered solutions to problems, you ignored them. When we achieved breakthroughs, you classified them as primitive experiments. Relman pulled out a data pad containing detailed reports of the crisis facing Council space. Dr. Foster, the Council now recognizes the value of human contributions. Your medical research, engineering innovations, and diplomatic methods are desperately needed. The galaxy is facing unprecedented challenges that require human expertise. And where was that recognition 5 years ago when Dr. Nina Scott's medical research could have prevented the plague that killed millions? Dr. Foster asked. Where was it when human engineers were maintaining fusion reactors that your best scientists can't repair? Where was it when human peacekeepers were preventing the wars that are now tearing the galaxy apart? President Martinez leaned forward. Ambassador, let me explain something about human nature. We don't need to be the most advanced species or the most powerful military force. We don't need to control vast territories or dominate trade networks. We just need to be respected for what we contribute. The Council offers complete respect and recognition, Relman replied quickly. No, you offer respect now because you need us. That's not the same thing. Real respect is recognizing value before crisis forces you to acknowledge it. The Council delegation discovered that their search had revealed far more than just human survival. The exploration reports that came back from the Rim territories shocked even the most optimistic Council analysts. Humanity hadn't just survived in exile. They had thrived in ways that surpassed anything achieved in Council space. Admiral Cavrin studied the intelligence reports from the scouting missions with growing amazement. The human agricultural world New Montana is producing food surplus that feeds 12 entire star systems. Their crop yields exceed anything we've achieved using advanced Council farming techniques. The industrial reports were equally impressive. The manufacturing complex on New Texas is producing Starship components with efficiency ratings 40% higher than our best facilities, reported industrial analyst Moretech. They're using hybrid technologies that combine innovations from multiple species in ways our engineers claimed were impossible. But the most troubling discovery was that humanity had made contact with species unknown to the Council. Long-range sensors detected alien technologies that didn't match any known galactic civilization. Dr. Foster confirmed the Council's worst fears during their next negotiating session. Humanity has established diplomatic relations with the Nexari, Collective and the Lumen energy states. Both species possess technologies that could revolutionize galactic civilization. We've never heard of these species, admitted Relman. They exist beyond the areas your exploration fleets have reached. The Nexari are crystalline beings who have mastered matter manipulation at the molecular level. The Lumens are energy-based, life forms with faster-than-light communication capabilities that don't require hyperspace travel. President Martinez watched the council delegation absorb this information. These species are willing to share their knowledge with us because we approach them as equals seeking mutual benefit. We don't try to impose our government systems or demand territorial concessions. We offer partnership, not dominance. Captain Brooks provided the final revelation that shattered the council's assumptions about their own importance. Ambassador, you should know that our new allies had been observing council space for centuries before making contact with humanity. They chose not to reveal themselves because they found council species too aggressive and hierarchical for meaningful cooperation. What do you mean? Relman asked. The galaxy is much larger and more populated than the council ever realized. You've been operating in a small corner of space while thinking you controlled the most advanced civilization. The Nexari alone have territories spanning over 300 star systems. The lumens exist throughout multiple galactic arms simultaneously. Dr. Foster smiled at the growing shock on alien faces. Humanity didn't just leave council space, Ambassador. We entered a much larger universe where respect is earned through contribution, not demanded through political authority. The negotiations continued for weeks as the council delegation desperately offered everything they could think of to convince humanity to return. Territorial concessions, technological partnerships, trade agreements, even reparations for past treatment. But every offer met the same polite refusal. The council offers joint research programs where human and alien scientists would work as equal partners, Relman proposed during their final session. We already have those relationships with species that treat us as genuine equals, President Martinez replied. Our medical research with the Nexari has produced cures for diseases the council couldn't even identify. Our engineering cooperation with the Lumens has developed energy systems that make fusion reactors obsolete. Then perhaps the council could establish diplomatic relations with these new species through human mediation. President Martinez shook her head. Ambassador, you still don't understand. You're asking us to help you because you need something from us. That's exactly the attitude that drove us away in the first place. What would it take for humanity to consider returning? Nothing, because we're not interested in raw. Standard first contact protocols, ma'am. Approach them as potential equals seeking mutual benefit and cooperation. President Martinez smiled at how naturally humanity had adapted to their role in the larger galaxy. They had learned that respect couldn't be demanded or negotiated. It had to be earned through genuine contribution and maintained through consistent demonstration of good faith. As she watched another group of alien delegates arriving for partnership discussions, President Martinez thought about the council's final years. The galaxy's former rulers had spent their last days desperately trying to hold on to authority they had never deserved. Meanwhile, humanity had quietly built relationships based on mutual respect and shared benefit. The council's regret was complete, but it had come too late to save their civilization. They high